think on that?
It is 8 o'clock and we'll call this meeting of the Airport Authority to order on this Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Looking for an approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Let's call the consent agenda then. Approve items 1 through 8 and A through M.
So moved.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Discussion on consent agenda.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is the first time we're using a consent agenda, and I think just so we each understand it. Anything on the consent agenda that a member wants to move to the regular agenda should be allowed to be moved, and so that we understand and know that it's sequestered the consent agenda, just so if there is something that you want more information on, or perhaps you don't want.
Yes.
That's what I'd like to make.
Duly noted. Motion been made and seconded.
It's maybe a good question. What goes on the consent agenda? What's our plan for that? Is anything that's not controversial or just anything?
Basically, just like all of the vouchers, individual vouchers are usually the consent agenda, and anything else that's just kind of the run of the mill. Like all different contracts, different land leases, that those types of things would go on the consent agenda.
Sure.
It's a time-saving event, really. I mean, you could put them all on the regular agenda and sit here for 3 hours, I suppose.
Oh, no, I support it. I'm just thinking, is there some thing that we know? Again, I think the point, if someone wants to pull it off, they can pull it off and we talk about it.
Oh yeah, you can move it around. If there's something on the consent agenda that you want to talk about, we can move it to the regular agenda. Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. On the regular agenda, receive the August financials.
Anna, are you on?
Yes, good morning, I'm here.
Are you going to share your screen?
Yeah, I sure can. If Darren will let me, I will get it shared here.
Should be ready.
All right, everyone can see it, right?
Yes.
Okay. No big surprises as far as I'm just looking strictly at the operating budget right now. No big surprises. We continue to track about $100,000 higher each month. So right now we're about $873,000 higher than budget for the year. So I have no doubt that we will make our budget with the 4 months left that we have, because these budget to actuals and this reporting that we're looking at is through August only. Some of the items that were higher than budget are the same that they were last month. The interest is higher, but just so you know, the Fed made some rate changes, so our interest rate will be dropping. Right now it's at 4.5%. It dropped from 5%. And First International Bank is keeping Sean and I updated if that is to change again in the future. So the interest accumulation from now till the end of the year will change a little bit because we are using some of our cash reserves at this time as well, and with the slightly lower rate change. The Fargo Jet Center is still higher. And the car rentals for the third quarter were actually higher than budget, which is great to see. But when I looked back, August is typically a higher month for car rentals, and this August proved to fit that as well. August was a really good month for car rentals. Some other items tracking higher than budget are Frontier and American Airlines, and the parking is up about 10,000 over budget, so we're sitting really good there. If we take a look at the expense highlights, just to compare this one to 2023, how we're sitting versus last year, we're actually sitting really close to the same. We had a $1.9 million snow removal equipment this year. So our expenses are up about 2.1 million higher than last year. So I don't see any concerns there. Overall expense actuals to budget, we are tracking lower, but we know that a majority of that is due to salaries, that we had budgeted extra employees in there that we have not filled the positions for yet. A few items tracking higher than budget, same ones I noted last month, nothing really changed. We had the snow removal repairs, we had ice events earlier in the year. Our vehicle purchase was a little bit higher than budget. We purchased the snow removal, and insurance rates really skyrocketed this year, which, you know, we didn't find out till after the budget was complete. So how we are sitting just net income, compared to 2023, we're lower, but that's because of our big snow removal equipment purchase. But where we're sitting at the end of August, overall net income, we're about 1.5 million over budget due to higher revenue, lower expenses. So I see no issues with the operating budget whatsoever. I'm briefly going to touch on the capital budget right now. Not a lot of information to share. We are tracking where we should be for the terminal and the parking projects. McGow has updated us with the new cash flow, so we have built that into the forecast. We are waiting on 2 grants. We have a federal ATP grant, I believe we're waiting for a decision on, which I think we should hear about before the election. And if not, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And then that North Dakota $60 million one. So we're waiting for those 2 that are pending. As far as anything else in the capital budget, I'm working a little bit with Mead & Hunt to kind of make any adjustments to the CIP. And I'm trying to build it out through 2031. So that way we can have a good indication of what happens when the terminal and parking are complete. Where does our money go from there? And right now, it's still looking about that April 2026 is where we are going to be needing some additional funding. So I'm still working with the revenue bonds and First International Bank and keeping everybody updated as to our status. A few other things to mention outside of the capital budget. I know last month some of the commissioners had asked about employments and statistics and stuff. And so I just kind of threw that in your packet. I know your packet has a ton of information, so I just summarized it really quick. I believe Darren does a great job of tracking this, so I'm just using his numbers and threw it in my statistics. One thing to point out was that August 2024 was the busiest month. And from my eyes looking back at history, it was the busiest month going back to 1980. So I think that was great. this employment statistics, everything in blue is kind of a record number. So we have been tracking really good. Just a summary on the right of our employments by the year. If we take a look, this is just another little chart for you, just tracking January through August of this year, and then I just broke it down over the past 5-6 years for you. Quick recap on the parking. The parking is higher than last year by 100,000, but we're ahead of budget by 10,000. So you have those statistics. And these are all in your packets if you want to look back at them later. The restaurant is tracking about 6,000 higher than last year and 1,700 higher than budget. So we're doing great there, no concerns. And the car rental statistics, you can see, maybe it's hard on my screen here, but January, like the first quarter, the car rentals were actually down versus last year. But the third quarter of the year, we really picked it up, and the third quarter is where the car rentals really skyrocketed for June, July, August. So kind of that second, third quarter we're coming into. We're 48,000 higher than last year and 269,000 higher than what we budgeted. So those are just a few statistics for you. I know I went through everything pretty fast. So does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chairman? Tana, as we're starting to see the trends run out now to year end, and further on, you've got your sort of the drivers of the 2025 budget. Are you seeing anything there that we should consider changing, given the outcome that we're seeing this year?
I don't think that we should change anything. I mean, that's the thing with the budget. I mean, we do our best to anticipate what is there. You know, the restaurant's really on track, the parking's on track. SP Plus really gives us good parking recommendations, what they're seeing for income and statistical information that we've used in the 2025 budget. Car rentals is always kind of a tough one to budget for, to guess. It just depends on car rental rates. It depends on how many cars, you know, the rental companies have in their fleets. And so, I mean, right now we're tracking higher than 2024 budget. We might have under budgeted that a little bit, but I don't have any concerns with the budget being too high or too low going into 2025 at this point.
And are you going to go through the rest of your slides there, the construction and where we stand on all that, given grants and everything? Or
well, I'm not sure if you really need me to or want me to. I know that, like I said, there hasn't been much change whatsoever. We are waiting on 2 grants right now. We're still estimating, you know, what if those grants come in at, you know, if we're not estimating we're going to get 100% of them. We're estimating that we're going to get 75% or 50% of what we're asking.
yeah, could you flip to that slide?
Okay, let me see here.
Sorry, I should have had the number.
Let's see. Well, I thought I had it up.
I think
My computer's thinking. All right, you're looking for this slide right here?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, right now I think we're in a good place. If we get 75% of what we're asking for from the grants and stuff that are left pending, we're gonna need 42 million. And that's just overall. That's not counting what we have in our cash reserves.
That,
So really,
that's the thing that would help me on these four, is to what our cash balances are, since you're excluding cash in the process.
Go to the next slide, Tana.
let's see, I don't,
The next slide has operating balance by quarter.
oh, okay, let me pull that up here.
Mr. Chairman, we don't need to go into a lot of detail, but we spent a great deal of time trying to balance these grants that are coming in, our cash balance, making sure that we're on track. So I think what would be good for us to know going forward, either by quarter or by month, is there anything that's different, because we're going to fine tune this as we're going forward. So we don't need to go into all of it, but if there's a grant we're expecting in November that should come in November, we want to be aware of that. If it doesn't come in November, then we want to know about that as well, because then we'll have to figure out, okay, where are we going to get the money? What's our other alternative? So I think it's kind of this floating thing that we just, if we're kind of off track on anything, we really want to know about it as early as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and all I'm trying to do with the operating balance and cash balance is, our model at whatever 50 or 75%, we need 42 million, but we have cash reserves at this point of how much. So how much would we really have to be borrowing? How much could we spend in cash? And again, it gets into that whole discussion. Do we need 800 days of cash or do we need 300 days of cash?
Well, right now, I guess you can see the screen here where we talk about the days of cash, the operating days of cash. And it doesn't fall below that 800 mark until about the second quarter of 2026. And that's where I was talking about in April of 2026 is where we're going to need a cash injection. We're going to need a line of credit. We're going to need some outside sources of funding at this point.
Well, and again, Tana, that major assumption there is that we use as a minimum 800 days of cash. If we were to look tighter on our cash and say we can live on a year's worth of cash instead of 3 years, that would change our cash position and allow us, we're going to have to make a decision on borrowing, but it seems to me we've got some room in our cash there, as opposed to, and that's all I'm trying to understand as we go through.
Okay, and you are correct. I mean, yes, right now we're kind of staying in that 800 days cash on hand. If you as a board decide that you would like to go less than that, yes, that would definitely help our cash position. And carry and extend out when we are going to need additional funding.
Well, and again, not predicting things, but one way that we could change our cash position entirely would be to operate with a line of credit as opposed to cash on hand. And again, that's a trade-off between the costs and the different things, but it just I just want us to have an understanding of what's happening in those graphs as we go forward when we hold cash outside of that analysis. Because instead of cash on hand, we could, theoretically have in place a large enough line of credit that would take care of that. So, or half and half, or whatever it might be. But these cash numbers, the 800 days, and I continue to say this, the 800 days has never been a policy. It's simply a number that's being used.
Right, it is. And I don't think it needs to be a policy. I think that it can just be 800 days is what we say for now. But as we get into quarter 3, quarter 2 of 2025, we may want to reevaluate that. At that point, we're going to have a better understanding of what the interest rates are and stuff. To know if we should go with a line of credit or to know if we should come down and have 400 days cash on hand.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly the discussion that we want to continue to look at back and forth, because again, depending what interest rates look like and everything else, we may be better off doing 400 days of cash and 400 in a line of credit or whatever that might be. Or it might be better to increase our borrowing and hang on to our cash. But we just can't lose track of our cash as we're looking at our borrowings.
Correct. Yep, and I agree. And right now we are looking at that. I mean, I'm working with Baker Tilly to get updated on the revenue bond rates. He just touched base with me last week or the week before and just, told me that the revenue bonds for the terminal side would still be higher than we would like. We know the rates are coming down, so hopefully after the election or into 2025, those rates will come down. And so as long as we keep checking monthly or quarterly, I think we're staying on top of it to know. But we really can't make a decision or pull the trigger on anything until quarter 3, probably of 2025. So if we do need to get something in place, we can.
By that time, we could have different Bank of North Dakota stuff.
Mr. Chairman, my concern, Tana, is not the minutia that you're talking about right now, but we're trying to get $60 million for this project from the North Dakota legislature. That will be decided by the second quarter of 2025. I don't believe that's in this funding. So I think what we need to do is just on those big picture things, I mean, almost going back to square one, we've got a $200 million project, kind of one page. Where's that money coming from? What's coming from the feds? What's coming from the state? What's coming from our cash reserves? And then we just track that quarter by quarter.
And that's what we have been doing right here. This one is tracking it at 50%. And that state funding is in there.
What do you have from the Bank of North Dakota? You have 60 million?
Nope, we have 30 million. And then we also have 75% of 60 million. So we're tracking it at 30 million and at 45 million. And I know we're being very conservative, but I don't want to put everything out there at 100% just in case a grant falls through or the 60 million becomes 40 million or.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that's what this board should make some of those decisions. So we just need to be able to say, what are we comfortable with? And I don't know, again, offhand I should, but I don't know if that includes a 40 million loan from the Bank of North Dakota or not. But I think our goal is to, again, have a $40 million loan, 2.5% from the Bank of North Dakota, plus 60 million either cash or another loan from the Bank of North Dakota. And we're not going to really know where that's at until probably December or January. But so again, from our standpoint, we want to know those big chunks. When do we expect them? And then ultimately, as we're going forward, we don't want to run out of cash. We're not worried about 800 days, 200 days. We still want to run out of cash.
Right. And right now our cash on hand days, like I said, we are good for our cash on hand days. We're tracking that right now based on the terminal and parking projects that are out there and the other projects that are on our cash forecast based on Mead and Hunt's estimation of when those projects will start.
Maybe, Mr. Chairman, if you go back where you had those 4 scenarios, 100% guaranteed, you had 4 different scenarios there. Maybe what we need to do as a board is kind of narrow that down to 1 and then just track that. Otherwise, it's hard to know what we're tracking. So that might be something that we could do. And then,
well, that's where the cash balance comes in. And again, Tana, we may be more affected by the city's credit rating when we go to issue bonds than our days cash on hand. We're going to
Very true.
we're going to be selling City of Fargo bonds, not Airport Authority bonds. And the reserves that we're tracking are as if it was a direct obligation that we're selling there. And so, again, I agree, Rick. What I'm trying to do is get the full picture because I don't want to be in the situation if we're asking for money and they look at some of this and say, well, wait, you got cash on hand, you don't need this. And so we need to be planning through the whole process there, what it would actually look like. This is close, but it's not building operating cash into it. We don't have the operating surpluses that we seem to be generating on a regular basis. And I'm not sure if we even have the city's mill levy in there.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yep, the city's mill levy is built into the capital projects.
Well, if you go back to those 4 scenarios, Tam,
Okay,
part of what we did was, that was when we were making a case for us needing revenue. So there you've got 4 different scenarios. One scenario says we need $100 million. Next scenario says we need 22 million. You drop down, there's 2 other numbers there.
Mhm.
So I guess what I'm saying is I think we should just come to an agreement on picking one of those and tracking those dollars as we go forward.
Yeah, and we're running right now, what, 80-90% on our grants? I don't have an idea.
right now there are 2 grants left for the terminal. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But I show that they would be the federal ATP competitive 2025 grant. Like I said, my notes say that we'll know that before the election. And then the North Dakota state direct allocation of 60 million. So there's about 70 million out in grants yet that have yet to be determined.
So maybe,
if we-
Tana, on the cash balances you predicted through 2026, what scenario did you base those on?
they're based on 50%.
That bottom right-hand one.
Yep, they're based on the 50%, the cash balances that you have in your board packet.
And that's where I'm trying to equate to that if you could put on their cash balances or something, this excludes cash.
That was the other page I have, but I think.
Right, I'm just saying, put it on the same chart, what your cash balances would be.
Okay,
And how that, because what we're looking at there is a pretty stark number at 50%. And we're saying we have to borrow everything beyond that, whatever that is, the 62 million, when we are going to have some decisions on cash to look at there.
okay.
No,
So you're just asking that I put like the cash reserve balance or the cash reserves that we already have, and then the money that we'll actually be needing to go out and look for.
yeah, I mean, we need to know what this is going to look like through the project, including all our sources of cash. So if we're running operating surpluses, if we're going to in 2024 run a $1.5 million operating surplus, that all builds into cash also.
Yep, it does.
And so, just so that we understand where we're going there.
Okay. And what I can do that I did not put in this packet for you, I can put like the balance sheet for you that right now we have going out to 2031. And I kind of held off on doing that because I just want to make sure that I can confirm Maidenhunt's numbers for our CIP projects that we have coming up. So I thought by the end of December, or hopefully at the December board meeting, I could give you a good indication of what it's going to look like, capital projects through 2031, and the funds that will be needed for the projects that are currently on the forecast.
Well,
Knowing that if we don't get the funding, we may have to revisit what projects get completed and what do not.
right, and by first quarter of 2025, we're gonna have a pretty good read on the state money, and it sounds like the federal money, we should know allocations there soon, so first quarter of next year, we're gonna be able to identify what we're looking at. And perhaps this type of model might go into negotiation with the legislature. And they may restock the Bank of North Dakota 2% interest infrastructure funds, which would have a big impact on this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to help us keep everything in perspective as we go forward.
Yep, and I will give you, I mean, I can present it any way that you would like me to. So I can add that to the charts and not only say what amount needs to be funded, but how much cash reserves we plan on using at what point before the additional funding is needed. So you have that all in one place.
Well, that'll be a discussion as we start identifying any borrowings that we're going to need. That discussion will start taking place as to what's that balance that we want between those. What's the interest rate structure and everything else as we go forward.
Okay, I can do that for you.
Okay, any further discussion? Any further discussion? If not, I need a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Shawnee, Bird, Townsend.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 2, receive update from Adam Stone Street Group 2 LLC regarding proposed improvements to SGA hangar. Consider approval and 1-year extension to ground lease effective January of 25.
Yeah, we sent in some updated drawings. Basically, the building's going to be a mixture of some blacks, light grays, throw some window panels on there. We're going to get a full architectural set. The building's going to be a standalone as it is, just going to get a major aesthetic upgrade. Pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, I can try and answer them for you.
Questions?
Well, what
Bird?
That's it. What is the staff's recommendation here?
Well, I think there's been some development since the agenda was prepared. I don't know if we spoke yesterday.
Yeah, there was a additional call sheet that Nate sent out from Goldmark, our architect, with some color choices and metal panels. I mean, as it sits, that's how it's going to look. So we're going to do a backlit sign there on the right side, some glass panels. We're going to put a aesthetic glass in the hangar door there, and then all the metal on the building is going to get reshaped. We'll have a white roof. We're going to use a fog color. It's like a light gray for the majority of the front facade of the building, and then with some black accents on the side and north and south walls. And then there's going to be some various vertical 4-foot wide windows that go up pretty tall, as you can see there. They're not going to quite look like that, but pretty close.
So it's my understanding there's still some conversations ongoing between Group 6 and your partners.
Yeah, right. As of right now, we talked about that because we're always open and willing to listen, but it's going to be built out as it is as a standalone. We're not going to do any modifications to tie into any structures right now at this time.
So it appears that there's still some uncertainty, and of course, I think originally it looked for a one-year extension. You don't have a closing date yet, correct? I was told it was October 15th,
October 15th, yeah.
and is that still firm?
Yes.
Okay, so once you take ownership of it and until some other plans come forth, I think I would only recommend an extension of the lease through April 30th of 2025 to give them more time to put their plan together and also to continue conversations with the Group 6 and what they may do in that same general area.
Was your plan to start any construction this fall or next spring kind of?
We'd like a start in the spring, so if we can get the 1-year lease and then, maybe look at getting that extended through that 20-year with the CO that's been issued and, working with the board. I'll attend a few more of these meetings as we work through our plans to make sure that you guys have what you need.
Well, I think kind of the issue is this thing, we don't really know exactly what you're gonna do. When you figure out exactly what you're gonna do, I think you come back at that point and ask for an appropriate lease length.
Okay.
I think the concern is if we just approve it for a year, I mean, you don't wanna take words out of your mouth, but all of a sudden, here we are next year in December.
Right.
It's been done.
Yeah, no, I can understand that.
But I think just to be clear, our intent is if you guys buy that hangar and close on that hangar, our intent is to honor your lease as a long-term lease and you're approving it.
Okay.
So, but I think before you start approving, you're gonna wanna figure out what the long-term lease is and we'll wanna know exactly what you're doing, maybe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely.
It'd make us more comfortable too if it was actually closed, there's a transaction, it's recorded with the county, so that we can then enter into a lease agreement with the appropriate party. At this point, we don't have that.
Yep, no, that makes sense. So at the last meeting where I can't remember exactly what we got agreed to.
We approved transferring the title to you after you
Right.
close.
Subject to closing,
So didn't we get a 12-month lease extension with that too, or no?
subject to closing, it was
Subject to
12, but I think based on some new information I discovered since the agenda was prepared, with some conversations with Group 6, that I don't know if a year is appropriate, or I would just recommend through April 30th, but it's up to the board if they want to do it fully.
I thought we just approved the transfer of the lease to you,
That's correct. That is
Not-
approved.
the term.
Okay.
And so
Yeah, I think
that's
the
what
group
we're
would be
doing
fine
now.
with that. Yeah, we'll have to definitely step. The plan is, this whole hangar transaction and getting this going came about quickly and trying to rush through with freeze upcoming in potentially a month. It's just we want to get it done right, so it's definitely gonna be a spring.
Let's do this, let's extend that lease till April 30th for now.
Okay.
And you close, figure out more of the detail and plans, and somewhere in the time, the next 4 or 5 months, we come back.
Okay.
I'd make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
That's a motion. Okay, the motion is to extend the lease through April 30th of 2025. Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Just one
signify by-
question, Mr. Chairman. Our escalator clause in there is how much?
The board capped it at 18 cents. There isn't anything beyond that, unless the board decides to do that. 18 cents is prices out of the market. We're the highest now in the region where our competitors are.
No, I was just wondering, we take a look at this. I don't know what our sequence is, but I'm just curious as
All of our ground leases have that the ground rental rate is subject to change on the anniversary date of every year.
right, so we can change it.
Change it
but
every year.
What we should be doing is trying to benchmark, so if we are out of market, we can tell.
Way higher than West Fargo, Moorhead, Kindred, Castleton, Detroit Lakes, where our competitors are. 18 cents puts us almost double what they are.
But it's a different facility too.
It's true.
Much different. No, I'm just curious about that. So something
We'll put that on a future agenda item.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, thank you. Number 3, receive update from TL Stro Architects regarding the parking structure.
Thanks, Adam.
We don't have a ton to report other than things are going really well. Obviously, weather has really been good to us from the standpoint of building and stuff. So we are still on track. You can see we don't have any more posts sticking out of the ground. They're cut off. They're pouring caps. And we are scheduled for October 14th to start getting precast panels. They've done some things with regards to widening gates for the size of the crane that is going to be needed to do this, and so we're sitting in really good shape. And we have one other thing on the agenda with regards to parking. Would be Greg's going to be giving a little presentation on this new tracking system. Greg?
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to just share my screen if that's okay. And I'll go full screen just for purposes of showing you the animation that goes with the particular parking experience that we're talking about today. So again, just welcome. I appreciate the opportunity to pick back up on the conversation we started when I was in town last, and kind of sharing with you what we feel is the next step for Hector International Airport with respects to mitigating just the pain points with parking, but also introducing a AI approach to how to oversee and run the parking operation. So I'll just take you through this slide deck, which will show you, again, some of the topics that we talked about, but also getting to a little bit of the pricing that you asked for when I was in town most recently. So with that said, I know we touched on how different parking systems have the options with tickets to where you pull up, you pull a ticket, you push this button to get a ticket, you insert your card for this long before your payment can be accepted, and so forth. Actually, I will come out of full screen so we can run this a little better. So one of the things we want to make sure is that you have a seamless experience and you know how to operate the particular parking devices when you come to the Hector International Airport. It's not you do it this way for this lot, you do it that way for that lot. And so what I'm presenting on is obviously something to go into your parking garage, but also your long-term lot, since you have a shared exit plaza. And you're at the point where you have to make that decision on what do you want to see in your parking garage. One of the things I'd be remiss to not mention is the valet system that went online August 26th. It runs on the Metropolis platform as we speak. The reason that's important is simply because you actually have already started to accumulate members, members being folks that came, partook of the valet experience, but also have decided to sign up and put their card on file to pay seamlessly when they return. And so these are just a few KPIs that I thought I would share before we get into the Vision platform. You've had 159 members sign up in the last 30 days since we went live. 18 have returned since Valet has launched, and you've generated about $15,000 in revenue in that 30-day period, which obviously we're expecting a significant uptick once we get into the hard winter months that we're approaching very soon. As far as computer vision is concerned, why computer vision? It's simply a unified approach, again, to parking. It's the simplistic way of parking. You pull up to the gate, your vehicle is recognized based off of several attributes about your car. And that's one of the things we really want to get across, is that it's not just LPR. A lot of traditional parks vendors will mention and identify and say, well, we have an LPR solution. What's different about this AI approach is it looks at several attributes about your vehicle, which you'll see on the coming slides. So while it's recognizing that complete data set, approximately 7 different images of your vehicle, to not only know what your license plate is, but it's also recognizing the type of vehicle you're in, size, shape, form, and so forth. And that's important because once you make it to the exit, we want to be able to pair your entry with your exit. And so that way you never have to lower your window. That is significantly important in the winter months. There's no scanning of barcodes. It's simply you pull up, your vehicle is recognized, you pull in, you stay, you park for an hour or 2, you park for 3 days, whatever the case may be. You upload your card. on file, and then when you return, you pull up to the exit and your card is charged automatically. So there's no work that has to be done on your part to make that payment, to know how long to insert the card, know when to take the card out the reader, all those different things like that. This gives you a little insight into, again, what I just described and how the technology actually works behind the scenes. So again, you see a vehicle at the very top here approaching the gate. It loads the information to the cloud, which we use Amazon Web Services for our stored solution, fully secured. We make sure all the cybersecurity measures are in place to make sure that none of this can be accessed by individuals that should not be accessing the data. And then from there, it is uploaded to our platform, or what we call Anchorman, if you will, as part of our Orion system. And then we push it back down upon exit. So once you pull up to your exit and we recognize that you're on the vehicle loop in the ground, that information is called upon, and it recognizes, Greg Pearson pulled in on this date. He owes for 3 days of parking and charge his card that's on file. So that's pretty much how the system works. And this just gives another flow chart of what it looks like, if you will. And it also speaks to the fact that it's not just license plate recognition. It's motion detection, vehicle detection, LP detection, and then recognition of the license plate, which is uploaded and then ultimately matched to the vehicle upon exit. One may ask, what, again, a little bit more deeper in the weeds on the technology stack, we can actually integrate with access control systems, stairwells, and again, we're able to do that through these devices that you see below your screen. We call it a Big Mac and a network stack, where we can actually have this tied to if certain individuals had access control privileges to stairwells, which I know this is not a part of this project. I just want to kind of show you the scale of how this system could be recognized. We can actually interface into doors and so forth if need be. I'll jump to the virtual experience. Again, this is a visual. I thought it was important to kind of show you what this looks like. You'll see to the far right, there's no more kiosk or terminals, if you will. It's literally just signage showing you or telling you what to do, because we recognize day one individuals will probably be like, where do I go to press a button for a ticket? How do I get in here? And we're just simply telling you, just drive in. It's about a 3-second delay, I would say. You pull up over the loop, your vehicle is recognized, and 3 seconds thereafter, the gate arm opens and you just drive in. And obviously we would continue to have the support staff in and around the operation, at the entries, at the exits, educating the passengers on how this process works. But again, I do want to really drill in on the valet operation in the first 30 days, and the fact that you will have this operation on this platform for approximately 11 months is what we're shooting for, at least. So you'll have a large membership base day one, once the vision system is put in place. So you have a lot of members that will already be subscribed, that will be able to, the first time they go in the garage, just pull in and not have to do anything else other than pull in, card is already on file, and then drive out as well. This just, again, once you're in the garage, once you're in the long-term lot, we're big on signage up to the extent the airport wants us to be. It'll show you and again explain to you the simplicity of the system. It might be multiple signs, but the signs are not really long to read, because it's simply telling you to drive in, and upon your exit, drive out. There is an option to scan a QR code or text to pay as well, because we do recognize that not everybody's going to want to subscribe, if you will, or join, or maybe that infrequent flyer will be flying out and not have a need to, or feel like they not have a need to join again, because they don't have any intentions to fly anytime in the near future. So we have signage for that as well. And we also place that at the exit as well, which you'll see right here, just in case you choose not to sign up necessarily for being a Metropolis member. One thing that's important to mention is this is across the entire platform. This is not limited to Fargo. So if you have individuals that have used Metropolis lots in Minneapolis or elsewhere, which I know there's definitely some leakage and spillover from both of those locations, which I'll be touching on a little bit later with the zip code data. Those individuals that have parked even in a commercial lot, not necessarily an airport lot, they can immediately drive in and drive out without having to do anything or lower their window at the airport as well. So that experience transfers across the board to all locations that have the Metropolis platform. Validations. I just wanted to show this because mainly we can leverage this for any type of situation where you want to validate parking and or for cash payments. We recognize we're not necessarily at 100% credit card yet. So if there is that person that just insists or just, wants to pay with cash, we still have lane 1, if you will, where they can pull in. We can provide them a validation and they can still get out with no issues whatsoever. So we're not saying it's all or nothing. We're just simply saying we really want to push people to sign up and use the technology. But if they really just prefer to pay in cash, that option still exists as well. That's what I touched on a minute ago. If you're not a member, not a problem. Again, you have the option to text to pay. If you don't want to pay with cash, if you don't want to sign up, that's still an option. And you can just do a one-time text to this number, go on, tap the link, make your payment, and exit out of the garage without interacting with any of our staff or our team on that particular visit as well. We have robust data, robust reporting. We do transactional reporting. So, Sean and the team would get this reporting as much as they want. They can actually have dashboard access to log in and see it live as the cars come in and park. They can see the vehicles, how long they've stayed, stay durations, how much money they've made throughout the month instead of waiting, for a monthly statement that's going to tell them the total. They can kind of look at this in real time as it's happening throughout the month. And this is for all the Metropolis products, whether that's Valet, Vision, Scan to Pay, whatever the case may be. So we have really robust dashboard reporting that we can either share out or just send at whatever tempo the team prefers us to send it to them at. This was something that we talked about, I want to say in Q1 of this year. The board inquired about our ability to obtain zip code data from the credit card providers through WinCave, if you will. And as you recall, I did report back and say we were not able to do that based off the current setup because the data would not be shared with us. In this particular case, because we have taken our fate in our own hands and we are now processing the cards through our third-party Braintree provider, if you will, we have access to that data. And so the data you see now before you comes from the Valet operation. These are the counties that have tapped into your Valet operation in the first 30 days. We could get very granular and show you the counts and the number of individuals out of that 159 that I showed you initially. But my point in sharing this with you is anything on the Metropolis platform now, we can pull that data and give you tools to assist with your service development initiatives, leakage questions, whatever the case may be. This is real life, real time data that you'll have access to now by running your parking operation through the Metropolis technology, because we do have access to that data now, whereas before we did not. Last but not least, before I get to pricing, this was really just to kind of show how seamless the launch process would be. I know we have a little runway ahead of us before we will be looking at deploying this, but we just require the same basic infrastructure of any traditional park system would have. And that's just really power, to be quite honest. We have a self-contained unit that runs the internet for the Metropolis technology, or we can use fiber optic if that's present, but we don't require it. And it's just a seamless install. We typically estimate about 60 days from start to finish with an install, but this is really just to kind of show you this simple process and the fact that we do go through more of a education, based training and outreach leading up to the rollout before we put the technology in. We don't just put the technology in and hope the passengers understand how to use it. We actually try to do the outreach in advance to make sure that they're comfortable with the technology and know how to use it. But once again, you have Valet there, and that is pretty critical because you have a lot of members on platform day one, if you will. So with that said, I'll just jump to this white paper, which we wanted to have this in your board packet when it went out Thursday, Friday of last week. But unfortunately, we did miss that target, but I'll definitely can share this with the board after this call and give you time to digest it along the way. This is just a side-by-side comparison of your OpEx expenses for FY23 and then also the trailing 12 months. One of the things we always like to set it up and show it this way is just because we like to show you the cost savings with this, and not only that, the absence of the CapEx that you would be traditionally absorbing when you procure other options, if you will. So with this said, again, there's zero CapEx. We just build in a SaaS fee, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I'll show you the highlighted fields because those are the areas where you'll be saving. I know you're seeing this 322 in comparison to this 169. The 322 was just a fair estimate of what your credit card fees would be once the garage is built. Obviously, the last trailing 12 months did not account for the garage because it's based off the actuals. So just keep in mind, that's why this is higher. What's nested into this currently, though, is your WinCave fees that you pay for EMV. And that's anybody that wants to pay with tap to pay or pay with a chip card. Those fees would go away because they're no longer paying at the terminal. They're now paying essentially in the cloud because their card is on file. So immediately with the change of this system, you're going to be saving on your credit card fees because you no longer have to pay WinCave for that technology that allows you to present your phone or insert a chip card in order to make the payment. But this number is only larger just because we're basing it off of the garage transactions as opposed to the short-term, well, not short-term, long-term and economy lot transactions. Your payroll, you'll see that has went down. We always find efficiencies with the technology. One thing that you're paying for right now is an LPI agent to do LPI about 6 hours a day. Take inventory of the license plates. That would be reduced substantially because this is factoring in the fact that they don't have to do the garage and they wouldn't have to do long-term lot. Economy lots, that would still be on the table. But if you yank the Band-Aid off and did this across the board, that number would even be less than 178 because they wouldn't even have to do the economy lots. Again, once you pull in, that data is captured and stored as far as the attributes of your vehicle. So there's no longer a need for a person to drive around and take inventory of the lot with the number of plates and the type of plates and what the plates are on a daily basis. So your payroll goes down immediately. Repairs and maintenance, that goes down because part of this is when we put it in, we support the system fully in its entirety from day one. There's no service calls, there's no R&M, there's no, this is out of warranty, this is in warranty. It's just 100% across the board. We support it. We have boots on ground. We do all the work with supporting the system. And then one thing we decided to do in this particular exercise was revert back to our previous management fee. Currently, you're paying, and I know this says $184.39. So we went back to the trailing 12 months, but your current management fee is approximately $218 a year. We will revert back to the old management fee and leave that in place as the starting point for this agreement. And that's just our part of saying we believe in the system. We'll charge you the fee that we were charging in the previous fiscal year, and we'll lock it in there for the operational side of it. So there's savings there as well, approximately $25,000 to $30,000 a year right there as well. So with that said, the Metropolis platform fee, again, our SaaS fee covers all of your maintenance, all of the software updates that go along with the system. Pretty much it's a turnkey solution, all the installation, there's no CapEx. You'll see that's right below the management fee. That's $150,000. So that's an annual SaaS fee. We also charge a $299 transaction fee, but that will be borne by the consumers on a transaction basis. So as you pull in, you stay, your parking fee is $60. There's a $299 transaction fee that's added to that. The only thing that's not covered in here is obviously the time to amortize this investment in the absence of a CapEx. So we would be respectfully requesting some type of extension because our current agreement goes through September of 2025. And so this assuming it would be installed somewhere around July, August of next year, would definitely want more than you know, a couple months to amortize our cost to put this in place and have this ready to go for you. So with that said, I will pause for questions. I know that was quite a lot to digest, and again, I can disseminate this after this call, so you can review it and ask questions that arise after you review it. But any questions so far about what I've touched on?
Mr. Chairman,
Questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Positive.
Greg, do you also have inventory management systems, available parking as part of this? That when you pull in, it tells you there's 2 spaces on floor 2. Have anything like that also?
So it's not within our portfolio, but we do work with vendors at many airports that provide that. I believe that's part of, and correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, you guys have a space counting solution as part of this to kind of say these are the spaces available on this row and so forth. Those work independently of this park system. And they can be integrated, to answer your question, directly to the website, even to kind of tell the person before they leave home or while they're driving over the number of spaces they have on which floors and so forth.
And kind of the express with just the AI technology in and out, is that going to be its own separate lanes, or are you going to have somebody holding them up trying to do a text to pay? Or
so that's why we recommend whichever option the board decides to go with. We do recommend, because you have a shared exit,
yeah,
we would not want you to mix the technology. We would say whatever you decide to do, it needs to be for the garage and the long-term lot. We want to set both of ourselves up for success, and we don't want to have you go to this lane for this and this lane for that. So to answer your question, all lanes would be fair game to exit out of based off the technology. And if you chose to pay with cash, that would be the only caveat to where we would assist you at that point and apply a validation to your stay and accept the cash payment. But yeah, we would not want to dedicate a lane for this equipment and dedicate a lane for that equipment, because it'll just cause some level of confusion.
Paula, did you have a question? You had your hand up earlier.
Okay, thank you.
So Greg, as you're aware, Flash has provided their solution, which they believe is similar to what you've just presented here. The information that you've presented here, along with what Flash has provided, has been provided to Terry. I requested that Terry reach out to Scott Fromming at Walker Consultants as a third-party unbiased group to look at both solutions, to give us the pros and cons and what that would be. And I think we're meeting on that in the next week or today, just to go through it and do that. And you mentioned this, your current agreement with the Airport Authority expires at the end of September 2025. The garage is supposed to open in August of 2025. If the board were to select the Metropolis solution that you've just presented and your contract isn't extended, what happens?
Yeah, I don't think I could get the approvals, to be very candid with you, Sean, to move forward with this without an extension because of the 2-month window from August to September. I'm pretty confident in that answer. It would need to be paired with an extension, just because, again, there's zero CapEx, there's an annual SaaS fee, and then again the consumer born transaction fee. So that's there is an investment on our side. There's a savings on your side. You're able to keep the revenue and continue to accrue interest off of that initially day one. So yeah, it would need to be packaged with some level of an extension. If I hope that answers your question. And I could be very specific. We typically would ask for a deal of this size somewhere around 4 to 5 years.
Okay. So Joe Casper's here from McGough. So we already bid out in one of the GMPs, the Flash equipment, and you haven't signed a contract with Flash yet because of this new technology that was just unveiled to the board about a month ago, our new opportunity. And I think we talked earlier, Joe, that the drop dead date for the board to make a decision, if Flash was to proceed as originally planned, was February. Is that kind of where we're sitting right now?
Yes.
So between now and February, we'd have to make a decision. If you want this technology, that's one thing. If we want to continue on with Flash and what's been bid, they have to know by February because Flash needs time to build up equipment to get it here in place so that we can open in August. That's the situation that you're in. This new technology, my peers across the country, this is where they're going. They're not doing the Flash stuff. This is where they're going. It's all AI. Now, I don't know much about the Flash technology that they're proposing. It's new. We just got the package. I haven't reviewed it. But they claim they have a solution like this, but I'm not sure it's quite to this depth and breadth of what we've just been presented here today.
And you will have a use case at an airport very soon. We'll be going live in November in San Antonio. So, you know, they have 2 garages and 2 surface lots, economy lots that they're applying this to, which is all of their primary lots. The only other lots we're not doing it on just yet are these seasonal overflow lots that they only utilize, you know, certain points of the year. So saying all that to say, in the next 30 days, you'll have an airport that, to Sean's point, that is excited. They're doing press releases. It's all over the media locally. They're getting geared up for this new approach to parking.
So the goal would be is by our November 12th meeting, we'll have a recommendation from Walker based on their review. This technology keep on track or what have you. So at the November meeting, hopefully we'll have a recommendation.
When did you say San Antonio goes live?
I don't know what part of November just yet. We're fine-tuning that out, but they want to have this in place before Thanksgiving. That's the goal. And it's worth noting, we are integrated with our partner company we acquired 2 years ago for reservations, AeroParker. So they're doing reservations. They're doing the parking as well. So, you know, they're kind of applying all of the feature sets that come within the Metropolis Vision technology. Once I have a date, I can be in November and before Thanksgiving.
Okay, Paula, then Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Greg, just so that we're not one of the first ones that we're working out the glitches, besides Austin, what other airports are using this technology? And then you mentioned that you could leave home and see on your phone how many spots were in a parking ramp. And I'm wondering if the flash technology is the kind that, for instance, is in Minneapolis, where there's a green light or like a green X or a red 0 over the parking spots, so you can tell from a distance. So is there a duplication of services for the passengers that are looking for parking spots?
So no, anytime you see that, that's called a parking guidance or parking assistance system. That's not a flash system. And I don't want to speak specifically for flash, but that's typically done through a company called Park Assist, which is a third party. We can integrate with all of those or not integrate, and there's really not a need to integrate with them. They can run independently. And so I believe that was either looked at with this project or is being considered with this project with the parking garage. But that's a separate, I guess, feature set, and that's not necessarily tied or integrated into your park system. You can have that separately, independently, and that's a separate cost, regardless of if you go with Flash, Metropolis, or any other parking solution, if you will. The integration comes in as to where you want to put it on the website and tell a passenger in advance the parking garage has 50 stalls on the second level. That's where the integration with your website comes in at. But no, you're not duplicating an effort. We don't have to talk to that system. That system doesn't have to talk to our system whatsoever. It's just a separate system that can run independently from that standpoint. Can it be integrated? Yes, but in most cases, there's not necessarily a need. The answer to your first question, so far, again, we were acquired May of this year by Metropolis. We have the technology in many commercial divisions, commercial locations. San Antonio would be the first airport for the vision experience, but not the first airport for Metropolis technology. Again, you have valet currently, so you were technically first for that solution at least, and it's been working really, really well. Not first across the board, but first from an airport experience. Scan to Pay has been rolled out at other airports prior to this. You'll ultimately have that on your economy overflow lot. But as far as the vision experience, San Antonio is the use case I can provide you now, but we have several other airports that are nearing acceptance of moving towards this AI technology as well. And as they become available, I'll be happy to share those with you.
Greg, is it the intention of your new company to grow this out to a national brand?
It is, and it speaks to kind of how I started the presentation. Again, this is not just to say if you visited Hector International Airport, you can pull in and pull out. It's to say if you went to a downtown garage that has the Metropolis technology in Fargo, if you went to one downtown in San Antonio, but happened to fly out of Fargo, you're able to be paired and matched up with that entry, with that exit. And so the thought is, how can we simplify parking? Because that's what we figured it out, right? The ticket's going to get stuck at some point. It's just going to happen. No one can assure you with moving parts that something's not going to stop working, not get stuck. And I can assure you, honestly, even with the AI, that it's not going to have an issue at some point. It will. You know, I'd rather make sure I maintain my integrity with you guys than give you false hope. But I'm saying that to say, how can we simplify the journey? How can we make sure that you just pull in, let the system and the software do all the work, instead of you dropping your window, figuring out how to work this equipment? You went to Minneapolis, it was different over there. You came to Fargo, it's different here. You know, all these different ways to enter and exit. The most simple way to enter is to drive in and drive out.
Mr. Chairman, so just to be clear, so this company purchased SP Plus.
Correct. May 16th, we were acquired by Metropolis.
Sure. I mean, that, yes, I understand that. So I appreciate Sean and Terry looking at this, because I think we can't separate the technology from SP Plus. And so my concern is just saying, okay, what if we get into this 18 months and it's just a mess? What will be our cost? Because I think these digital platforms and solutions are going to just continue to improve. So I'm not asking you this, Greg, but more for Terry and Sean. When you're looking at this, I think it'd be important to know, if we put this infrastructure in, what are we paying? If we switch gears and have someone else come in 12 months from now, what's our cost to do that? And I'm not saying we don't appreciate SP Plus or anything like that, but we just don't want to be in a situation where we're kind of held hostage and someone says, you know, $3 a person on 300,000 is costing our people $1 million in addition to what we're paying. We just want to be able to know that we have some options, or what that cost would be.
Joe, what is the current bid? Is it 400 something?
The current bid from Flash is just under 800,000, but if we choose not to install that service and go with this right away, then there would be additional cost for not getting.
Let me be clear. So my question would be, if we go with either one and 12 months from now we want to change, what do we have to do?
I would have to run that.
I mean, just to roughly know, it's going to cost $1 million. We'll be able to use the same stuff.
I have no idea.
So
It'd be more than their bid right now, because we would not have put any of the underground conduit in or pulled any of the wire to get Flash's system up and running right now. So if you choose to go with the camera option right now, then if you want to switch at some point and go back to Flash or a different system, then we would have to run additional conduit that would not be underground, or we would have to get invasive and demo concrete, trench in underground conduit and pull that additional wire.
Well, I expect Walker's going to tell us what's happening in the market, who has the largest market share, what's going on in this digital world.
So the only way to technically future-proof, and that's what we do all the time in buildings, is run additional conduits and stuff. If we just continued on with the conduit runs that we have planned now and didn't use them, but could use them if we change, that would be another possibility.
That'd be good to have that as an option. So if we do change the conduits already in, we have Plan B.
That's really the only other option. Most likely, every year you'll get closer to more and more wireless service. So, don't know if that's a good idea.
But again, I appreciate you guys looking at that, coming back.
It'd be a mistake not to put the conduit in.
Dr. Shani.
I'm going to ask a question of Sean, but maybe isn't limited to you. After you've done all your due diligence, we're going to have a meeting. San Antonio is going to come up, which is obviously an exponentially bigger operation. How valuable, or would it be valuable to have the meeting scheduled after San Antonio is up and running, and having that as a final confirmation, so to speak?
That's certainly possible, unless they would have enough track record by the December meeting. I don't know if they'll have enough.
How valuable would it be to you to be able to advise that?
I'd like affirmation that it's working, absolutely. And I know the folks at San Antonio, so.
That would make me feel more.
Yeah,
I
me
would,
as well.
That was a fantastic
I would say we're
idea.
not going to know a week after we start or a month after we start. I mean, it's going to be tough to make a decision based on that. I think just thinking this a little bit deeper, I mean, SB Plus is using this system everywhere going forward. So maybe the question is, we need to make a decision, who's our parking lot manager for the next 5 years? Because I guess my understanding is SB Plus, this is a system that you're supporting, you're using. If we decide to put Flash in, that's not necessarily a system that you support, that you're going to use.
So no, I mean, and that's the biggest thing with this acquisition, which made us so excited, was we have the ability now to control our own fate. We obviously can work with SKIDATA, Flash.
That's okay. That's okay. So I think the issue is bigger than just what technology we use. I think the issue really is, who do we want to have manage our parking lot for the next 5 years? And if we want to continue with SB Plus, then there's really no decision. They're going to use this. If we want someone else, or we want a different technology, we need to find someone else that has that. Is that?
They don't have to use this technology.
Exactly.
They can continue on with Flash as is, or SKIDATA, or
Just
the others.
think that forward, Sean. I mean, Metropolitan owns SB Plus.
Correct.
They're gonna not want to support Flash or those other things.
They wouldn't support Flash.
Yeah, exactly.
Flash is like a vendor. So when Flash has a problem, Flash has to fix it. Not just like they do now. So it wouldn't be any different than what you're doing today.
And one more thing to add, that the current agreement or the procurement was made directly through the airport. It was not a subcontract through SP Plus. And so you would continue to operate the same way if you chose Flash, any other parks provider. We are not cutting off any arm of our business, but we are making airports aware that we can do more than what we were able to do May 15th. And so that's the biggest thing that we're saying is, look, we can control our own fate, give you a turnkey solution that we would manage from that standpoint, or we can continue to manage whatever solution you want from a technology standpoint, but then still be your boots on ground and your point of contact to get things done. But just know that that's a separate contract and agreement with that parks provider, like Terry touched on.
So Greg, at our last, well, when you first unveiled this to the board, you'd indicated that this Metropolis technology is in place off airport all over the country.
It is.
There's a track record for this at parking garages, downtowns, and so forth. It's going to airports. It's just a different location. The technology is the same, and I think there's a success record off airport at shopping malls or wherever it is. And can you touch on that a little bit more?
It is, yeah. So it's shopping centers, it's municipalities, garages, commercial surface lots. So it's not all just, covered and enclosed into places. Winter climates, Chicago, Minneapolis, where it gets really cold. Some would argue Fargo's colder, maybe not, but just, it's all across the board, south, east, west, north. So again, from a standpoint of outside of airports, there's a large enough sample size to be comfortable. From a standpoint of airports, I definitely respect, which is why I brought up San Antonio. They would probably be, unless something in the next 3 weeks, somebody leapfrogs them, which I doubt, be the first airport. But to answer your question as well, I do believe in the first, week or two, you can get a lot of information, even from a San Antonio, just because the technology, as you touched on, it gets smarter every day. That's what AI is. And not only that, on the front end, you would be off to a head start because you would have members day one. San Antonio is not going to have members day one, but we're still going to expect a smooth start there. You would have 10 months of valet members that would just be able to pull into the lot and enjoy the frictionless experience that we've all talked about post-pandemic.
So the point is it's not new technology, it's just new technology for airports.
Correct.
It's been around.
Any further discussion? Is there any further discussion?
I'll add one more thing, Sean. So the reason for the February date was just what I talked about was for the conduit. So we're starting slab on grade activities February 10th in the parking ramp. So if we're wanting to possibly still be able to go to Flash, then we would want to have those conduits in. The second part is, how I understand it right now, I'll use the term in stock. So we don't have a contract with Flash. So if we were given the go ahead in February, we'd have to contract with them and then use the in stock material, the meters and the arms that is in Texas. So they don't have to, there's not procurement time right now because they're in stock, but that could change down the road. They just have them right now. So us getting them installed and getting the parking ramp open at end of July, we'd have to get those in before, obviously. So there's no lead time to the equipment that we need to get there, but that could change. So the February date is to make sure we get all the underground in for the system, assuming that it's still in stock in February.
Rick?
Well, I understand this has been a really good discussion, but if Metropolitan owns SP Plus, I think we kind of have to go with them if we're going to have SP Plus going forward. I mean, I could see it.
Whatever you guys decide.
Well, I'm just saying that the last thing I would want to do is 2 years down the road, they say, well, we told you not to use Flash, and here's the problem you're having with Flash, and we can fire them, and you can put Metropolitan in or do that. So, I mean, I think it's important for us to know what our plan B is and what our options are if this thing doesn't work. But it seems to me it's, again, very difficult for us not to use who our manager is recommending to use. My concern really is if it fails, then what's our plan B? And so do we have, and I would probably assume that we'd be looking for a different parking lot manager as well at the same time. So it might be something saying, who are those other vendors and do they all use Flash? Or I'm just planting some of these seeds for you guys to think about.
Well, one of the things that concerns me is if, like you say, if we go with SP Plus and then 18 months down the road want to change and we haven't put in the underground conduits, like would they have to go above ground? Maybe it would be smart to go that extra expense and get the underground conduit in now. And then if we don't need it, fine. We didn't expense it, we didn't have to, but it's better than going above ground or cutting up concrete and redigging.
Right.
No, I totally agree. And just so you know, whenever you change from a SKIDATA to a Flash or a Flash to TIBA, if you will, all the traditional parks providers, the infrastructure is the common denominator. That's what's always reused and repurposed. So if you can get that put in and have that in place, that keeps the organization scalable to where it can accommodate any one solution. But in all cases, they come out and take the stuff that you see and then replace that with the new equipment. It's the underground stuff that stays and remains.
Well, maybe what we have to do is just select our parking provider by November, December, or whatever time frame it is.
5 years.
But I do want to reassure the board that there is no position in our organization that says we're going to walk away from a contract, an agreement, a commitment more than anything, because you choose to pick a different parks provider. This was solely brought up because, hey, I'd be remiss to not share with you what we can offer you. And we definitely don't want you seeing these options going in elsewhere and not knowing about it. That's what we're here for. Just as we evaluate everything, your rates and make all these other recommendations, we are going to be fully supportive of whatever decision you make, whether that's MT Vision, whether that's Flash, or any other parks provider. Again, the current contract is with you. It's not even through us. And we fully support that. And that's year 1 or year 5.
Well, that's kind of the decision ahead of us. And Rick, to your point, maybe we go out and do the RFP that includes the system as well as the management. That, the RFP is going to look for an integrated solution to parking, including the management system. And then we evaluate them going. We're set to go. We'll be up and ready to go by next summer.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to make a decision by September next year anyhow on whether we're gonna renew SP Plus or go with someone else, right?
So we just take it out now and ask you, we have the choice of doing the RFP for a management contract and a service provider, the equipment, or we can ask for a combined solution in the RFP and pick one and away we go.
We just put in brand new Flash equipment, so that wouldn't be a valid RFP. Flash is all new equipment.
And did we purchase that?
Yes, we own all the Flash equipment.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's one of the problems with changing technology, that we might have to look to sell that equipment, or if we want to go to the AI or the license plate readers. That would all be part of this. But I think we get ourselves in trouble holding on to existing equipment when we know there's new technology. It's a decision to be made, absolutely, cost, but.
What are your wishes?
Well, I think let's hear back from the group that's gonna meet, and then I think, again, figure out if this is, I didn't realize that we spent all this money on Flash equipment till now, and I don't know what that amount is, but if that's not the way the future is going, it's gonna be something that's a sunk cost for us no matter when we do it. But I kind of think that, we don't want to make a decision on our parking lot manager August of next year. I think we should make it sooner than that, so they're plugged into everything and they're going forward. And I just feel that if this company owns SP Plus and there is a problem, we'll probably get more response from them than if it's a third-party vendor. But I guess that would be my suggestion. You guys do what you're going to do, come back and say, okay, here's what we recommend and here's a plan B, plan C kind of thing.
Mr. Chairman. And I think if there's new technology available that's going to be better for our passengers, like where Greg said, you don't have to roll down your window. If there's something that's going to serve our passengers better and be more cutting edge, that's something that we should definitely be considering.
Okay. Come back with some suggestions by the next meeting. Okay. Very good.
Chauffeurs here.
Number 4, receive update from Eden Hunt regarding passenger terminal expansion and modification. Brandon.
Hey, good morning, everybody. We are much like what Terry had mentioned. Coming out of the ground, you're seeing a lot of progress out there. A lot of bodies moving around. And more so on the terminal, we're getting the precast erected. So the foundations inside the building are done. Precast panels are substantially complete. You can see how quick the building takes shape when you tilt those up. And then stairs, the stairs are precast as well. Those will begin installation of those. You'll also see steel erection going up through the middle, and then the steel decking will go over that. And I think that's slated about early November. And then the timber structure will start showing up towards the end of November. So yeah, a lot of moving parts around the terminal. It's pretty exciting. That's about all I have for the construction update. Then we also wanted to provide an update on the baggage claim modifications, and then the furniture, the furniture option for the 2-arm seating. So we were able to pull together information on all those things and have some information to report. So before I jump into that, did anybody have any questions on the construction progress?
Any questions?
It was exciting to drive up and see a crane with 3 huge something concrete things hanging in the air, and I just know that we're cooking right along. So looks good.
Okay. Go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, okay. So Darren, do you have that PowerPoint?
Do you want to share it or?
I can share it. Yeah.
Sure,
Let's do that. Okay. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Oh.
Yes.
Switch this. Well, trying to reverse it. It's showing.
I can show it if you want.
Let me. I can just pick the other screen. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So baggage claim modifications. Right now, what you're looking at, what was in your board packet, we have a left and right of what is currently in the contract. So just to give you a visual on the item on the left, obviously should look familiar. That's where the current baggage claim area. Then the image on the right should look familiar as well, because that was a rendering image that we shared recently. So that is what we're starting with. You can see there's going to be a recognizable transformation in that area, a real refresh with some of the stair wall being reformed, then all the casework and everything on the rentals being restructured. Lighting is going to be different than the painting scheme, and the walkway above with the glass rail there. So that's what we're starting with. Now we had walked through with Paula. It's probably about a little over a month ago, and we talked about, well, what would it look like wrapping the columns with a wood veneer that would relate this area to the concourse, adding LED lighting above the baggage carousels, kind of drawing attention to that area, and then adding additional baggage cart storage besides the existing side stair. So we looked into that. We put together some ideas or a little more detail, so that would give McGough enough information to put some numbers together for that. So the first item, wrapping the columns in wood veneer, you can see where that would take place. I have an image of what that wrapping the column would be similar to. This is the wood column in the concourse area, and we'd be wrapping those columns accordingly, those ones identified in the baggage claim area. And they identified budget number of about $32,000 to do that. Adding the lighting over the baggage carousels. So it would be essentially rectangular, just kind of a rectangular pattern over the carousels. It would be this linear LED slimline lighting framing that. That's kind of the idea that we came up with. That's about a $32,000 ticket item, but bringing highlight and drawing attention to the baggage carousels. And then we talked about the existing baggage cart storage. Right now, it's kind of underneath this image on the lower left hand is where you're currently at. You have wheelchairs and cart storage over there, or the carts for baggage stored over there. And really, I mean, we think looking at that, you have a lot of different types that don't really stack together, and I think that could be part of the issue, because I think each airline just provides their own. You could look at providing one type that would stack and store more efficiently, but if you don't do that, then we were looking at other ways to add storage to the carts, and maybe keep the wheelchairs over here and keep the baggage carts over in this other area. And what we were looking at the bottom of those stairs near the baggage carousels, there's a series of 3 columns that we would strip those and build a wall and little alcove with some rails there, so that you could store your carts there. Doing that would be about a $20,000 ticket item. So those are the baggage claim modifications. We did talk about furniture. The furniture and such will be addressed in the next part of this presentation. You know, adding furniture in those areas, along with planters and then yeah. So any questions on what we shared so far? Some of the modifications.
Cosgrove.
Brandon, and again, I've asked this before, but just to really beat it to death, we aren't adding any carousels at all.
Correct. We're maintaining we're replacing 2 of them as part of this project.
So we aren't adding any capacity, but if we potentially have 5 or 6 airplanes all at the same time, do we have capacity now with these 3 carousels to handle baggage? Because baggage is the thing that we get beat up the most for. People are frustrated, they want to get home. Are we confident, given the number of gates we're adding, that at capacity we're going to be able to handle it? Because I don't want to listen to the public on the backside of this the first time there's 4 or 5 airplanes at the gate and people are waiting long times to. So
that's a great question. And we did go through that in detail. That was part of our demand forecast that we did the year before we started design. So I know this has been a long journey, but we evaluated the capacities of not only the gate, but the whole operation of the airport. You know, right from ticketing, checkpoint capacity, concourse, all the way through. and this is through 2040 that we're looking at, that we anticipate that you will have adequate capacity, and it was based on your peak hour. So
And you're
we are
also,
confident.
they're in the back room, so to speak, you're upgrading the baggage handling system on the back side. And again, does that create a bottleneck as it comes out to the passenger? That if you're
No.
able to handle it faster in the back room, I'm just really concerned that
Yeah.
we're gonna kind of create our own problem over it.
No, the bottleneck in what we were looking at was really processing the baggage in the back, and now having a new baggage screening system that is going to improve your processing, and it's with room to grow down the line. Your baggage claim area already had that capacity in, so we based it on AITA standards, design standards, and evaluating the number of emplanements that you'll be having through 2040. So yes, we're confident that you won't have any bottlenecks at the baggage claim.
And then just the last thing that when you were Mead & Hunt was looking at the potential hotel sites, they had identified a future baggage expansion area on the west side, and so that was after 2040, or why was
or in the event that you pursued a customs scenario where you had to add that, it would make sense to do it on that end of the airport. So we were trying to keep that open and maintain the flexibility of in the case you wanted to do more international flights.
Thank you.
Brandon, on the baggage, the carousels, is it the carousels, the cells, the three that we have now, and instead of adding another one or two of them, is it the carousels themselves, or is it the lack of employees getting the baggages off the aircraft into the carousel?
That is a big part of it, is having the staff, that all your planes come in at once and that they're able to unload the bags and bring them back to the carousel. That's what we were hearing in most of the list, in the listening sessions, is that with limited staff, it would be getting a surge of deplanements, and then having the staff and the tug capacity. Without getting into the weeds, you had the trailers for the tugs that they would throw the bags on. They were having to be backed in or more meticulously parked. And with our new system, it's a pull in, pull out. You'll have double-sided pickup and drop off with the baggage screening, at least, so that will relieve congestion in the back of house. So that's a great point, that staffing is also a part of that equation.
I think staffing is a major part of the problem even right now. Because I've noticed that there's a lot of people waiting up to a half hour, 45 minutes to pick up their bag, and it's only because the airlines don't have the personnel to take care of it.
Right. Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, that's a great point. We should kind of peel that back and find out what the issue is. There was a letter that I think we all saw last week to the forum where someone was saying they had a 40-minute flight to Fargo and then they waited 40 minutes for their bags.
Yeah.
And I called the forum and said, hey, I'd like to talk to this person. They said that we as airport authority should reach out to the forum and say, ask them if we could talk to them. And they said they would do that. So I'd request that we reach out to the forum and just say, they'll say the person that wrote the letter, you know, we'd like to talk to you and find out the details. So if we do that, I think that'd be helpful.
Mr. Chairman, I wrote the same letter to the airport authority a year ago, where we waited 55 minutes to get our bags after coming from Minneapolis. And I was told an answer that it was something to do with the loading of the plane and you don't want it to tip. But I had the exact same, and I wrote the same thing.
Anyone reach out to you?
Well, no, I heard back, but I got an explanation, but I don't know that it was addressed.
We need to solve.
I got an understanding of why it was delayed, but I didn't get a sense that this is going to be corrected, you know. And it was something that you remember, Sean, but it was something to do with the plane. They didn't want it to tip over. They had to move the bags, and it was 55 minutes, if I recall. And people were standing around looking at the clock. And part of it was nobody was coming out and telling anybody, hey, there's a delay, your bags are coming. They're all just standing there. You know, that was part of it, was asking for. So I could tell you what my letter was.
Yeah, so it's the same exact situation. So in the letter to the editor was there, he's a retired UND professor. And so, I mean, the people are well known that wrote the letter. So we engaged Kent Hagan, who was the station manager for Unify that worked the Delta flight. So they had a 737 that came in, and Minneapolis loaded 2 human remains in the rear cargo bay. The human remains had to be unloaded first. It takes 10 to 15 minutes to unload each human remain. Otherwise, you get into exactly what John said. You get into the weight and balance issue. Flight attendants were supposed to be advising the people on board that they'd had to wait to deplane, but that's where Minneapolis loaded the human remains, was in the back. Had they been in the front, it would have been a different situation. That's as simple of an explanation as we can get.
Well, I think what we want to make sure is we have the infrastructure that if the solution is to have more employees, and then we come to with more employees, there's not enough capacity in the infrastructure to handle it. And that's why I really think we need to really, really make sure we're on the numbers here. And I do think we need to have a discussion about what are the options to improve baggage handling, and not what we can't do, but what are some creative things we could do. And yes, they're going to probably be more expensive than everything else, but it doesn't matter. We can give you an explanation, but we can't give you a solution, is what you're saying, John. That we can explain it, but how's it going to not happen the next time? And we don't have that answer. And so I think we should, ask staff to explore what are some creative options that could improve that situation, and realizing that it's the airlines that are contracting that. We may have to really have some unique approaches to it, and it may be too expensive, but we should at least explore it and see what they are.
If you think of any, there's my counterparts across the country would be open to listening.
Well, Paula has some good ideas. Provide some chairs while they're standing there.
There's plenty of chairs.
I mean, so they're just not
Chairs
standing
down there now,
There's plenty.
and nobody uses
I
them.
think we're kind of missing a point here. The point is, we should be tracking how long it takes for people's bags to hit that carousel.
They do. They have all that data.
So then give it to us, because I'd like to know what is that average? Are we improving that over last year or not? How can we improve? So if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So
Yeah.
I'm
Can't
just,
guarantee they'll give it to us, but I can ask for it.
well, I mean, maybe we have someone track that. I don't
I mean,
know.
then we can negotiate with the airlines to get more people.
Or
Because if we have human body remains that you got to remove, or individuals that just have to unload the aircraft and then bring it in, and then they're loading it again, that's the same person, and he can only do one job at a time.
Well, that's a great point, Mr. Chairman. I think every airline has their own staff. We know employment is difficult. It's hard to staff them, and they're paying a lot for that. There's a way that could be consolidated and made more efficient. I don't know.
And I think the problem is that no airlines has their own staff anymore. It's all contracted out. They're not Delta employees.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, this was something that we discussed about a year ago. It was one of the ideas or solutions that came from the mid-size airport conference that I went to, where some airports are hiring their own baggage claim staff. So instead of a Unify and a United and a Frontier and an American and a Allegiant, you've got one staff that's well trained on all the equipment, and they come in and it's just more consistent. You've got more staff, and so that's one solution that some airports are using, is hiring the baggage claim in-house. And then the airport then turns around and charges American or United, and then for an airline, for instance, like a Sun Country or a Breeze that says, we're thinking about coming in once a week, but we don't want to have to deal with hiring a baggage claim staff. Now that's already in-house as well. So that's one out-of-the-box solution or option to the baggage claim dilemma.
You still have to compete. They still take RFPs. You still have to compete to get that business. Not all airports get it.
Well, and I think what we're asking for, Sean, is just what are the options? What would it be if we have to meet competitive pricing? Is it a subsidization of the airport, or But let's look for the creative solutions, and then understand the cost and everything else of it, so we can make a decision. We can't rule out solutions and just keep handing out platitudes. Here's the reason why. We know that when flights get out of sequence, baggage is going to be delayed. And if it was something under more direct control of the airport, they could maybe have call-in crews. Again, this may all be too expensive, but let's not eliminate a solution.
Nobody's suggesting that. Nobody's suggesting eliminating solutions.
Well, no, the argument that we'd have to compete, we have to say, well, okay, what's that look like?
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to thank Brandon and Gina for coming and just walking through the baggage claim area and spending some time to really kind of troubleshoot things like when we looked at the renderings, how the post had been squared off, which would make it easier to hang the screens, which gave the baggage claim information carousel, corresponding with the inbound flight. And I just wanted to thank you both for coming and being here to just walk through and troubleshoot and come up with some really creative ideas. So thank you, Brandon, and thank you, Gina.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Moving on.
We're not done yet. We also brought together information on the two-arm, moving to the beam seating that would have the two arms, as compared to what we currently have in the in the plans, which is the single arm with tables. So Gina's just going to run through what her findings on that.
Brandon, can you move to the next slide?
Yep.
Okay, so where we are right now, what we have specified is the Arconas flyaway. We have drink holders at each seat. We have end tables as well as mid tables in the beam seating. And the flyaway, if you remember, is that higher back. It has the lumbar support. The cushions are easily interchangeable. And the power on the flyaway is both the AC power and the USB power. Can we go to the next slide? So our alternative is Arconas Arvo, which will offer the two-arm solution that we're looking for at the airport. This is a unique product. Not only can we have the two arms, but we could also have a tablet arm that would have the power in the tablet arm as well as a drink holder. And you can switch out the chairs. You could change it for a fully upholstered chair or you could do a lounge chair. So it's a very unique system. And it's one of the newer systems that Arconis is offering. The power, though, for this is just your USB. It's your USB-A and your USB-C power. There's no AC power associated with this. Can we go to the next slide? With the Arvo, though, it does take up a lot more space than the Flyaway because we are adding that extra arm. So we did a study. We took each gate and did our seat count per gate. And we also did a new layout with the Arvo and did a seat count. And you can see the difference in the seat count is 154 seats. So by going to this new option, because it does take up more space, it is a larger footprint, we're losing about 154 seats total for the full expansion and renovation. If we go to the next slide, we can compare cost. And as you can see, we are losing seats, and the cost of the Avro is about $30,000 more than the Flyaway. Here again, because it is a newer product, because of the different components, it is a little bit more costly than the Flyaway. So that is our finding as comparing the two arms compared to what we currently have specified with the single arm Flyaway system. Do y'all have any questions on that?
When does this decision, excuse me, I'm
Go-
sorry,
go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair. When does this decision need to be made, or when do these furniture pieces need to be ordered?
Brandon, what was our deadline on that?
I would have to go back and look. And I know we do have some time on that. I want to say it was February, but I'll double check that, Paula.
Okay. Mr. Chair. Okay. Thank you for checking on that, Gina and Brandon. I know that was something that I have seen in airports across the country as they're redoing spaces. So Los Angeles, Seattle, Boston, even Williston. It's kind of that same concept as nobody really likes the middle seat on the airplane. Nobody likes to share an armrest.
Yeah.
But it also goes back to the COVID and the cleaning and the personal space. And so I really appreciate you doing some research. And to me, $31,000 amortized over a generational project seems palatable. But February is a long ways off. And thank you so much for doing the research and looking into it and giving us some options.
Of course.
You bet. And what you're seeing here, just so you know, we're also, these are the seats, Gina, that we're currently providing in the baggage claim. Is that correct?
That's correct. So that's the difference between the two benches is the top bench there is that Avro bench. Here again, Paula, with the armrest in between. And then the lower bench is the Flyaway bench. So those would be the benches at the baggage claim. And then that serpentine wood bench would be around that post at the end of baggage claim. And then also there is the planters that we're proposing to put at the carousels as well as at the stairs. And the price for these components, since it wasn't originally in our original budget, is about $60,000 to add these components to the baggage claim.
Mr. Chairman, question on the Flyaway chairs. Is that part of the original budget?
It is. That's what we have specified right now. Correct.
How do they differ from our current chairs?
They're pretty similar to your current chairs. Your current chairs don't have that let's see, there you go. The interchangeable pad, lower seat. It's a newer product. It's open on the bottom. It gives more space on the bottom than what you currently have.
Mr. Chair. Also, the current chairs have, Mr. Berg, the stand-up charging post. So you kind of have to bring a long cord with you. But I was really happy to hear you say that you've got the USB-C charging, which of course is the charger of the future that integrate, that is going to be, thank goodness all these
iPhones have moved to that
iPhones
too.
and everybody have agreed to go with USB-C. So I'm glad to see that that's a part of the charging system. So thank you.
Okay. Anything else? If not, we'll move on to item number 5. Unless Brandon, do you have anything more?
Nothing more. Everybody have a great day.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 5, continued discussion regarding proposal for meet and hunt associated with coordination of exterior signage, branding, artwork, sponsorships, and advertising, and consider approval. Brandon?
Oh, well, I just an update. I think the last time around we had talked about the artwork piece of it, and that was about 90, a little over 90 to 100,000. Part of that proposal was managing and procuring artwork, and then there was also a recommendation letter in there on what would be budgeted for that. Well, since then, Chair Bashani, thank you for that connection. We have met with Michael from the University Arts Department and had a really good conversation last week about some programs, potential programs. There's a lot of excitement from Michael as well about what an opportunity this is to share artwork. I mean, they have thousands of pieces, artwork, sculptures that they once we showed them the locations and such within the airport that we have set aside, that they would have absolutely no problem filling and rotating that. So he's looking at putting together an agreement of some sort on how that would work, how that would operate with the airport. We would we would coordinate that with Artworks, so with Tanya and what they're doing right now. If you recall, Artworks, they were concerned about being able to provide enough artwork to fill some of the spaces that we had. So Michael, on the other hand, has no problem doing that. He feels like he'll have plenty to share and provide. So I think this is a big win for the airport, in that the having a rotating artworks, doing themes, getting the community involved. It's really exciting stuff. So more to come on the artwork piece of it. If the board is interested, still interested in the coordination piece of it, I'm giving you the rule of thumb of about 100,000 of that was the artwork piece of it. That gives you a rough idea, and I can revise that proposal if you'd like me to just include the exterior wayfinding and signage coordination, along with continuing shepherding this the artwork effort along. So I think that's where we're at right now, is with the proposal. So if you haven't, if you'd like me to, I can certainly revise that.
Well, my opinion would be, if we can get artwork for nothing, it's a lot better than what you're proposing at $100,000.
Yeah, and that was only the fee for procuring it. They also, I think it was $400,000 or $500,000 that Oland was recommending if you were to procure it. So yeah.
Yeah, and this gives the opportunity of local artists too. So rather than somebody out in New York or something. So
Well, I think if you want to take a look at that, Brandon, the other two pieces, I agree with what you've come up with. Thank you, Dean, for getting us going that direction, and Paula for your work on that. But I think the two other things were just the signage from 19th Avenue until someone gets in the plane, someone's looking at that. And the other piece was sponsorship. So I think we've had a lot of discussions on those two things over the last couple months. So maybe part of it is just kind of rethinking that a little bit rather than just rewriting your proposal and knocking 100 grand off. Just kind of think through that. I think people like Flint that have talked about taking the potentially would take the sponsorship role. So again, I think go ahead and do that, but let's have some discussion in the meantime too.
Okay. Yeah, I'll certainly touch base with Flint and revisit the sponsorship scope of that. Revise the proposal then. Okay.
anything else?
No, I think for sure that is it for me now.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Item 6, receive update from sponsorship working group and approve proposed non-binding MOU with Clear Channel. We've got that. Looking for a motion to propose a non-binding MOU with Clear Channel Airports.
Mr. Chair, Stacy, are you on?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think this is where we had Paula and Dean on a subcommittee, and maybe what they want to do is just give a recommendation.
Okay, well, I'm waiting.
Okay, so basically just outline what we did. We had this committee meeting with Clear Channel to try to bring the parties closer together as it relates to the idea of sponsorships. Clear Channel takes the position that sponsorships come under their contract. Airport Authority takes the opposite position. So I thought we had a good meeting. And we simply came up with a non-binding memorandum of understanding where the parties can move forward with the sponsorship idea and just to continue working through the issues that might arise. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's 8 paragraphs. I guess I don't know if anyone has questions of any of it.
Questions?
So Stacy, I think we had a pretty productive conversation yesterday about some of the verbiage that I thought was of concern. And since that has not been changed yet, I cannot recommend as a committee member approval of this MOU as it stands.
Okay, and as we talked yesterday, and we did talk through some of the concerns that you have, and I think and you did put those into an email to me, and I think if I can incorporate some of those proposed changes and send it back to Thaddeus at Clear Channel, perhaps that's the step we take today.
So
I guess I'm not.
So we wouldn't take action today. We would postpone until you have a chance to put together an amended MOU.
If that's the direction you want to give me, I will go with that.
Well, I'll defer to Dr. Brashani, my co-committee member.
I thought for non-binding MOU, the 4th draft was adequate as is. I don't know how, if Stacy has any sense of how continuing to edit it will be received by Clear Channel. So I guess that's a question of you, Stacy.
So with the last exchange, I believe that Clear Channel thinks that we have an agreement with this draft. I guess my one comment would be that this is sort of the way that the parties can move together without changing the actual contract. And so that the airport has the opportunity to look towards sponsorships, and Clear Channel has the opportunity to continue under the agreement with sponsorships on their end. So I understand Paula's concerns. Some of the tweaking is more just verbiage. It doesn't totally modify the agreement in any way. So I could sure approach Thaddeus and say, I've got some minor modifications to the language and, you know, see what Clear Channel says. I didn't find that Paula's proposed modifications were substantive in any way. And I think, Paula, do you agree with that?
I guess quantify substantive.
Well, not changing the terms. You're just wanting to tweak the language a little bit.
Right. And like one thing that we had discussed was one of the final sentences was that by signing the non-binding MOU, that the parties agree to move forward in good faith to finalize the negotiations and draft an amendment. So although this is non-binding, which we all agree, a non-binding MOU, it seems that the intention is to move forward to finalize the negotiations, to draft an amendment incorporating the key terms set forth herein.
It does say that. You're correct.
Mr. Chairman, and being on the outside of this, at our last meeting, I was under the understanding that sponsorships have been taken off the table, that Clear Channel and said sponsorships, you take care of them. And as I read this, now I don't want to get into your negotiations. They've said sponsorships in these 5 areas are okay, but anything outside of those 5 areas has to be approved by them. And there wasn't any quid pro quo in the advertising in the sponsorships, but that's now come back in, and it's expanded the entire contract to all airport buildings, which would, I assume, include the parking garage, which was never anticipated. And I'm worried this MOU starts to me to see scope creep on an RFP process, that at the end of this, we'll amend our way into an agreement that was never fully bid on the front end. And so I think we have to be very careful here as we go forward. But you had the chance to visit with them, but like I said, we don't know what sponsorships might be available to us. And by limiting it to those 5 areas, maybe there's a sponsor for a business center. I don't know. And sponsorship is further restricted in that agreement to just a sign saying sponsored by or donated by XYZ. We'd talked about the situation of featuring some of the companies that have grown up in Fargo and North Dakota, and we would ask them for a sponsorship. And so I'm not sure what came through here is what was discussed at our last meeting.
Rick?
So, John, I can speak to that. I think that the end of number 2 of this memorandum of understanding, additional areas may be allowed subject to the parties agreeing. And Clear Channel was very open in that regard. So they are limited to the 5 areas in the beginning of number 2, but certainly the end of that paragraph allows for other areas.
Right. I think we're getting further into the weeds with them, that we have to go to them and ask them for approval on additional sponsorships.
But the same is true on the opposite side. The MAA has the ultimate decision as to their end as well. That's subject to board approval. So I think it's sort of mutual.
Well, if we decide, no, Stacy, if we say this is a sponsorship in Clear Channel, you have to accept this. We don't have that in this agreement. It has to be mutually agreed to. And so I think we're getting further into trouble. This is just my suggestion. I think what we need to do is go back to the strict interpretation of the contract because we have not resolved sponsorships. The board has said we don't believe sponsorships are covered by the agreement. Clear Channel has said they believe it is, and that's what we're agreeing to in here. I think what we need is a very clear understanding of what we're obligated to under the existing contract. Beyond that, we're bringing other buildings into play. Advertising in the parking garage was never anticipated as part of this contract. We're letting the scope creep through potential amendments that we might get totally different vendors and bids in a more expansive. This is going to double the size of the contract. All those things said to me, take the existing contract, clearly define what's covered under it. We make the decision to live with that. And let's take and look at an RFP for the new areas.
So I can speak to the parking garage advertising aspect. When you go back to the original contract, it defines airport buildings, meaning the terminal building. It doesn't include a parking garage. And in no uncertain terms, Clear Channel wants nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I don't want to debate this with you because it doesn't include sponsorships either.
Well, and that's again where we go back to the conflict between the parties. And
Right.
I guess what I thought we were trying to do with this memorandum is come to some mutual understanding of how to move forward.
Rick, I am really, really frustrated. If we would have spent all this time and money talking to sponsors, we'd have several $100,000 of sponsors. My thing here is we've tried to have a legal solution, and I think this is just simply a business solution. So right now, the way the contract states, it's unclear, it's silent about sponsorships. We're making $46,000 a year off this. If we go out and find a couple sponsors, when Thaddeus was here, he's going to work with us. I don't know why we need to spell all this out now when we don't even have a sponsor. So the other thing is we have to approve where they're going to put their displays. And so when I read through what we've done here in this memorandum, we've kind of taken away our rights or what we potentially have from a legal standpoint to negotiate with them. So I'm like, and I understand it's non-binding, but this is about as binding as you can make a non-binding. But I just look at this and I look at it and say, okay, what we've done is we say they can go everywhere without our approval, and we can't have a sponsor without their approval. And the only places we can have sponsor are in these 4 areas. And again, we have no idea what sponsors are going to be interested in doing. We fully understand that if someone is going to sponsor, and if that's going to be for them to advertise Joe and Bill's insurance company, that they should connect with Clear Channel. So again, I've found Thaddeus very easy to work with, and here's my perspective. I will support whatever you agree to, but I would like added in this contract that either party can terminate the contract with a 90-day notice. I think if we both have that right, we'll come together on all this stuff.
So my direction then would be to go back to Clear Channel regarding that additional language. What about the language contained in what we have drafted currently?
Well, I think your committee should keep working on that if you want to or not. But we're kind of like trying to guess what's our relationship for the next 10 years, and we're trying to cover all that stuff in a legal document that we don't really know. So again, my position is I'm fine with the contract we have and moving forward. But if we're going to modify it and want to modify it, I'm okay with that. Either party should have the ability to get out of that 10-year commitment. So I mean, that might be something that the committee can weigh in on. I mean, everything's open for negotiations.
And I thought as of the last meeting that the sponsorships were removed from this agreement and left up to the airport authority. That was, unless I was.
That's not what the MOU.
The MOU
I know that's not
MOUs.
what the MOU says, but I thought that was the agreement.
I did too, so I was confused when I read the MOU that said it requires advertising from each and every sponsor for the length of the sponsorship.
Yeah, I thought that was left up to the MAA. It was taken out of this.
I know, me too. I agree.
Well,
We could
there is
go-
another, if we want to, the language is important. And the one requirement says that the MAA must approve Clear Channel's advertising, which can be read is Clear Channel presents advertising, we must approve it. Or it can also be interpreted that Clear Channel has to bring their advertising to the MAA for approval. And we just need, that's one that just needs to be further refined, that Clear Channel will present advertising to the MAA for their approval. It's the way I think that's supposed to read.
I noticed that as well, John, and at different points in the contract, it says seek and obtain written approval of the MAA or shall be subject to approval upon submission to the authority. So I think that you touched on something that I noticed as well, the must on number 4.
And I just think everything that we actually make decisions on can be agreed on with that Clear Channel. I really do.
Well, with the 90-day out.
Well,
I
I mean,
love the 90-day out.
I think that brings us together.
Or apart.
So I move that we do not approve this MOU.
Well, I don't think you have, I mean, you don't need to make a motion. The motion would be that we would approve it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess I would suggest this. This working group remains intact, that we go back to Clear Channel and work back through some of these issues that you brought up. And then just to respond to what John had indicated, maybe the language needs to be tweaked better, but that was the intent of the parties, that the airport authority approve Clear Channel advertising.
Well, Stacy, it's just that it states the MAA must approve Clear Channel advertising.
Instead of must, could stipulate may approve. We may disapprove too.
Right.
Not the way it's written. It says we must approve. We don't have the opportunity to disapprove.
Okay, gotcha.
I think it's saying that the board has to approve the locations. They're not just gonna go and put stuff up when we find out tomorrow without our approval. So I think you're misinterpreting the must.
Well, no, that's why you want to refine the language before you enter into it, because it is subject to interpretation.
Well, let's turn this back over to the committee along with Stacy and get this redone or looked at again for the next meeting.
Mr.
Dr.
Chairman,
Shani.
I think a lot of this, what's getting lost is the committee had a very good and very positive conversation with Thaddeus, and the people questioning the most are the people that weren't in that. So I'd like to remove myself and ask either John or Rick to be on the committee so that they can hear it firsthand, and I'm not wasting my time.
And you are in agreement with the.
I thought it was adequate.
Okay.
In combination with the conversation we've had with Thaddeus, I think we're diving down a bunch of rabbit holes on individual wording issues that just didn't reflect the conversation we had with the man. If others feel differently, I respect that, but I don't want to waste my time with this anymore.
My position is I don't even think we need an amendment. No, I think think if John wants to do it, he can.
Sure. I'll be happy
So what did you say now?
I'd be happy to, if Dean wants to step aside, I'd be happy to take his place, subject to the approval of this group.
Okay, let's take it back and let Stacy check with Thaddeus one more time. Come back at the next meeting for either approval or non-approval.
So the members of the working group have changed.
Yeah, working group is now Cosgriff and Paula.
Need a
And
motion to that?
Stacy. Yeah, let's have a motion to that. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. Motion carried. Okay, item 7, presentation of airport marketing conference. Paula,
Mr. Chairman, would
you stand wherever you want.
Okay. The speaker. And Darren, I believe, has my PowerPoint. While he's doing that, I'd like to take a little inspiration from our governor and start with gratitude. Thank you to the board for entrusting me to represent Hector International at the Quotient Group Mid-Sized Airport Conference. Another moment of gratitude is I really want to thank the entire Hector Airport board and all the employees for pulling off just an amazing honor flight departure and arrival, particularly since it was such a big group. And thank you to Darren for helping clear the floor and make there more space for everybody. So just a huge thank you for the honor flight. I heard from so many members of the honor flight just how impressed they were with Hector International Airport. So thank you. Now I will tell you, I learned a ton from the airline industry professionals serving in a variety of roles, and could probably share for about 2 hours, but keeping the meeting length in mind, I am going to choose to share just a few inspirational community engagement celebration photos. And so these are, I tried to pick some photos from different size airports and different airlines and different destinations. And so the first picture is Rochester, New York, with their new nonstop service to Las Vegas. And you can see there's the Southwest Airlines, the executive director. They're cutting the ribbon. They made a big display to really celebrate their new service. And I thought that was, well, we'll go on to the next slide. This one is Plattsburgh, a smaller airport, going nonstop to Syracuse on Allegiant. Missoula going nonstop to Phoenix on Frontier. You can see Brian on the right under the H in the Phoenix. He's the executive director. You've got people from Allegiant. You've got employees. They're all cutting the ribbons. They're putting up balloons. They're making it a celebration and engaging the community in just really highlighting new services and exciting new developments at the airport. Next slide. The one on the left is actually from Minneapolis Airport. They started a Dublin nonstop service on Aer Lingus. The one on the right is Manchester and their nonstop service. They've clearly, all these airports are doing a little something different, but there's different size airports and different destinations. Next slide. Okay, this is kind of fun. The one on the left is Austin, and this is to celebrate the Delta Eclipse flights that happened. You can see, if you look really close, the stars and whatnot and the red carpet, and they're trying to really celebrate something fun and new and different. On the right picture is just a celebration of 25 years of service. And so it's not just inaugural service or mainline aircrafts. You can also do fun things with to celebrate things at the airport. I also wanted to point out the red carpet because that has been used, I've seen, for Make-A-Wish kids. They really make the Make-A-Wish kids feel special by rolling out that red carpet. Next slide. This is, let's see, the inaugural flight from, it's not Plattsburgh, I can't remember the ABE. It's a smaller airport to Orlando. It's not Abilene, but anyways, they did something a little different with the balloons. They made trees and whatnot. The sun, just something fun. I mean, you don't have to do a wall of balloons. You could just do a big sun. Next slide. I promised it would be short. Here's some local balloon vendors in Fargo. I am not affiliated business-wise with anyone. I just found those online. I thought maybe maybe they would be interested in bidding if our airport was interested in doing something like this. And I think I've got one more slide. So opportunities for community engagement, new and reestablished routes, mainline aircraft service like we just got with United. A welcome to the thousands of people that come here for the Fargo Marathon. We are going to have phases in the airport ramp construction benchmarks that we could celebrate, like the parking garage is done, or the skyway's installed, or different things along the way to make a long construction project show the public that we're hitting benchmarks. We could have a send-off for a national championship, for instance. I expect a lot of people will be traveling to Nashville next September for the Bison Nashville football game. We could do something with that. A welcome to the wrestling and hockey tournaments, which require many participants to fly in to Fargo. We could celebrate Air Show Week. We could celebrate Honor Flight. So just different ideas for community engagement and celebration. Generate excitement, generate enthusiasm, generate community engagement, and thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, the next thing is full business. MAA board members, public display and communication.
My favorite topic in the world, public records requests. I could make a long presentation and educate you on all I learned in 12 years of public records requests, but I'll spare you that. The short version is I had recommended us all having individual emails on the welcome from the MAA. That's not a good idea. It's not going to be practical. And I hope you'll spare me the half-hour explanation of why.
I'm good with that.
Okay, I thought you would. So what I would recommend is that we have one generic email, something indicating feel free to write to individual board members and your email will be forwarded to them rather than listing our individual emails and opening up a real mess as far as public records and record retention and on and on and on. I'm hoping that everyone will find that agreeable and we can just get the sign up.
And Mr. Chair.
Sounds good. Go ahead.
With that, I remember, or I think I recall you saying that you wanted to have like pictures up, like on the website, and then maybe in the terminal.
Yeah, and I think that touch is all good. It's just the email stuff turns into a quagmire.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if that was all wrapped into one or not. So.
Okay. Very good. Does that take the motion? I don't think so.
This is just a
all right.
slight pivot.
Item number 9.
Website, see us, we can have
We shouldn't have a personal phone number on there.
Only you.
None of that.
No, it goes to a central location and we'll put something that says it can be forwarded to Rick Berg if you would like to communicate him directly.
So you got an email from Dr. Schatz that he sent late yesterday morning with his suggestion for the governance committee. His recommendation is to continue with Dr. Rashani and Mr. Berg. And that would be the committee that he would work with to put together policy governance documents. He would like to present to all of the board members at our November 12th meeting. At the conclusion of the regular board meeting, he would like 30 to 40 minutes to go through and tell you exactly what his process will be in the governance arena. So prepare for that on November 12th at the conclusion of our meeting, or 9:30 is what he suggested. I think we can be done by then, so we can start to get you out of here by 10 on November 12th. December meetings, because of the air show convention, will meet on December 17th instead of December 10th. December 17th. December 10th will be our regular meeting in December, so that's all I have.
Okay, so is there a motion to, for Dr. Bashani and Rick Berg to serve on this subcommittee?
They already are.
They are?
They already are. It's just
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. We get off. You can't get off that.
I learned a new strategy today.
Yeah. No more getting off. Okay, item number 9. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second? Second. Good Lord, you want to say much? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.